System Shock 2023 is the culmination of Nightdive Studio's 7-year, once-rebooted attempt at modernising the ambitious but impenetrable 1994 original. An influential immersive sim from Looking Glass Studios that plays like an awkward hybrid between FPS and point-and-click adventure, with headache-inducing visuals and an overbearing UI to boot. The result is a game rebuilt from the ground up, but one that stays true to the core mechanics, narrative framework, basic map layouts, and even the aesthetics to a degree. Of course, it also enhances, expands, and refines the experience, so it's closer in style to its sequel, System Shock 2. A good choice when you consider it laid the foundations for games like Ironstorm's Deus Ex, Irrational Games' Bioshock, and Arcane Studios' Dishonored and, most significantly, Prey 2017. For those who have never played the original, System Shock is set in the cyberpunk future of 2072. You take on the role of an unnamed hacker arrested by the Trioptimum Corporation while trying to access schematics for a cutting-edge military neural implant. Shuttled to their Citadel Station research facility orbiting Saturn, an executive named Diego offers to drop the charges and provide a professionally installed implant, if the hacker can disable the ethical constraints on the station AI, Shodan. Despite their apparent education and incredible coding skills, the hacker's judgment is abysmal. They're anesthetized after disabling the subsystems, and wake up in a medical ward months later, only to discover the trade-off for their new neural implant is a space station strewn with corpses, and patrolled by an assortment of rogue security robots, humanoid and animal mutant hybrids, deadly cyborgs, and a homicidal AI with a god complex. Now, it's worth stating up front that System Shock is immersive in the sense you're thrown into dense sandbox-like environments, designed to encourage free-form exploration, a degree of non-linear progression, and player-driven emergent gameplay that rewards creativity. It's in stark contrast to many modern games that claim to be immersive when what they mean is cinematic, a design used to obscure limited mechanical depth or oppressive directorial control that often treats the player as an idiot with no attention span. Superficially, it's a competent FPS. You can run, jump, and sneak about. Melee attacks are simplistic, aiming and shooting are functional but unremarkable, and there's a lead mechanic that works like a basic cover system. What makes System Shock so enjoyable is how that basic structure serves as a framework for dozens of other engaging mechanics. You'll be looting key items and new equipment, agonizing over your loadout and limited inventory space, toggling on and off powerful, upgradable neural wares, listening to audio logs and reading notes for clues onto where to go next, studying the map or signs in the environment to find key locations, and triggering switches, entering door codes, or solving updated circuit puzzles to open paths through and between each deck. In isolation, they're all familiar enough mechanics, but the thrill comes from waking up in the middle of a disaster, slowly figuring out what the hell went down, and then using every tool and mechanic at your disposal to stop it, with minimal hand-holding. Now that said, while there's plenty of freedom and ample opportunity to wander about aimlessly, it's not a true sandbox. Sporadic broadcasts from a Trioptimum team and a small group of survivors provide some early direction, and Shodan has spent months fortifying the sprawling Citadel station and thwarting all prior attempts to stop her. That means staying alive while systematically exploring the station, piecing together the failed plans of the former crew, and then tackling several multi-part objectives before you can take Shodan down for good. An early example involves discovering the location of a senior doctor on the medical deck, which in turn leads to an audio log hinting at a way to stop a mining laser attack on Earth. This means entering cyberspace, redesigned as a simple but enjoyable 6 Degrees of Freedom shooter, to discover safety override codes, and then reactivating the station shields on the reactor deck. Of course, that procedure requires fissile isotopes found in a heavily irradiated laboratory on the research deck, where you might find an audio log pointing to a protective neural wear on the storage deck, or you could just burn through rare detoxing consumables, or maybe restore lab integrity through another cyberspace jaunt. It's a complex enough opening, especially when simply getting between key locations is a challenge in the maze-like corridors of the Citadel station, but there are always multiple ways to get around and obtain the key items or codes you need to progress. Taking a direct approach often means combat and burning through resources, so finding and reactivating restoration bays, which function as respawn points, is essential if you don't want to spam quick save and quick load. Alternatively, you can keep a low profile while hunting for maintenance tunnels, keycards and door codes, or solve circuit puzzles to open up shorter and potentially safer paths and supply rooms. Regardless of your approach, combat is a necessity at times, so you want to keep an eye out for more effective weapons, powerful ammunition types and neural wares, recycle abundant junk for credits to purchase consumables or weapon modifications from the new vending machines, destroy cameras and CPU cores to reduce Shodan's security presence on each deck, and make damn sure you take note of important audio logs, mark key locations on the map, and read item descriptions so as not to drop a mission-critical item. Even having played through half of the original, it makes for an overwhelming experience at first as you push forward with no obvious goal, retreat from lethal hazards or locked doors you can't bypass yet, partially complete objectives, and discover clues leading to distant parts of the station. Stick with it though, and you'll be rewarded with that sensation of all the pieces slowly falling into place, And, as you get familiar with the station and find new equipment, find yourself pushing forward with a sense of purpose. Around this point, you'll also start noticing a few elements that make the world feel so cohesive, and yes, immersive. For one, the game never pauses while you reorganize your inventory, listen to audio logs, enter codes, or solve puzzles. A simple enough gimmick, but it's effective and forces you to stay aware of your surroundings at all times. Even more impressive is how audio logs and notes will often guide you to fallen crew members and mission-critical items, with the environmental details, location of corpses, and crew IDs all accurately reflecting the events described or overheard. Now, despite an extended development period, System Shock 2023 has emerged in great shape, and the review build, sans the inevitable Day 1 patch, was stable, looked great, and felt optimized. The fully 3D environments are both incredibly detailed and more expansive, also retaining the claustrophobic grid-like design and garish colours of the original. Similarly, the sprite-based weapons and enemies have been beautifully recreated as detailed and often gruesome 3D models. There's an unusual but effective smooth from afar, pixelated up-close visual filter, which manages to capture the style of the original, but without degrading the impressive new artwork and models. The one divisive change might be the music, which shifts from quirky MIDI tracks to moody ambience that emphasizes the horror elements, albeit with some thumping synthwave variants for combat. For those who like gaming on the couch, there is gamepad support, but I wouldn't be surprised if its current state is why the console versions have been delayed. System Shock 2023 is still a menu-heavy game. There are a ton of shortcut keys, and surviving combat or cyberspace is much easier with precision aiming. The current gamepad support is simply not up to the task, making basic looting feel clunky, and combat twice as hard as it needs to be. Thankfully, System Shock 2023 still has granular difficulty settings, and I'd suggest the lowest mission difficulty for your first playthrough, so you can at least get some basic waypoints and ensure key items are undroppable. There are also combat, cyber, and puzzle difficulties to tweak the challenge to your liking, but I'd remind you that no matter your settings, System Shock expects you to pay attention to audio log details, environmental clues, tag important map locations, and backtrack a lot. If you're looking for a mindless sci-fi shooter, this is not it. Now wrapping up, here is System Shock 2023 for. I think primarily a small audience that, like myself, loved System Shock 2 and the many immersive sims that followed, but found going back to the original difficult with its awkward controls and clunky UI. The only potential downside for this group is that System Shock 2 will retread many ideas from the original, while this remake shifts the gameplay closer to that of the sequel, leading to a double dose of deja vu at times. For newcomers to the IP, if you've enjoyed any of the other immersive sims I've already mentioned, specifically Arcane's Prey 2017, System Shock 2023 should impress, just so long as you can accept it offers up a similar degree of freedom, player choice, and creativity, though with even less hand-holding and guidance. If you've got this far, please consider giving the video a like and maybe subscribing to our channel, as it helps us grow.